Hello everybody, this is Tech Hut, and in this video what we're going to be doing today is turning an old laptop or computer into a media server. Today I'm going to be doing this on this old ThinkPad laptop. It doesn't get too much use, so I thought that there was nothing better to do with it than to turn it into a home media server. So what this video is going to be is your guide on how to do this. What we're going to be doing is first installing the Ubuntu Server Edition on this laptop. I'm going to go over some other tips and things you might want to consider. Once Ubuntu Server is running on this, we're going to go ahead and SSH into it from a different computer, so that way you don't actually have to go up and do everything on this computer. And then that way we'll be able to copy and paste all the commands and everything that we're going to need very easily on our main system. Then we're going to go over installing PLEX, which is the media server we're going to use. I will note that for this tutorial, this is going to be on your local network only as far as SSHing and actually connecting to the server. But because we are going to be using PLEX, you will be able to access your content via PLEX applications outside of your home network. Now the title of this video does specify that we're going to be doing this on a laptop, but this will work on any old computer. It doesn't even have to be an old computer. You can get a special server or get a system dedicated specifically to this. This will work on just about anything, but there will be a little tip on how to make this just a little bit better if you are using a laptop. So enough with the introduction, let's go ahead and go onto our computer and burn the disk image of the Ubuntu Server Edition. Now here I'm on the Ubuntu website, and to download this, all you're going to want to do is go over to download, go to the Ubuntu server, and then over here under the manual server installation, go ahead and click on that, and you're going to want to get the latest long-term support version. The LTS versions are generally better to go with when it comes to running a server, because you won't have to worry about shutting down, updating, things like that. You can see here that the 20.10 server only has updates, maintenance updates, until July of 2021. That's not going to work for us, so go ahead and click on Download Ubuntu Server, and then you should see a screen that looks like this. You're just going to want to click Save File, OK, and then the file will begin to download. Luckily, I already have it downloaded. I'm running on a Linux machine right now, so what I'm going to do for this machine is open an application called Popsicle. It is the USB flashing tool created by the people who created the Pop OS operating system. This has worked really good for me. It's never done me wrong. You could use other tools like Etcher, and I'm pretty sure that you could do this through GNOME Disks and KDE Partition Manager as well. So all you need to do is click Choose Image, and then you can see I have the Ubuntu server right here. I'm going to go ahead and click on that, open the file, and once you have it there and you verify that that is the proper disk image, go ahead and click on Next. And then right here you should see the USB that you just plugged in. Go ahead and click on that, click Next, and it will begin flashing. It's going to prompt you with a password. Go ahead and type that in. I will note before you do this, it will completely wipe everything on the USB. So if you have anything of importance on there, make sure you go ahead and back that up. And if you are running on Windows, I recommend you using an application called Rufus. Just like with this, you select the ISO file, you select your USB. Generally, you keep all the settings at default. It'll prompt you a couple times asking if you're sure if you want to do this. It's going to wipe all your data. You just say OK and you burn or flash that ISO. So real quick, before we actually go ahead and install the Ubuntu disk image on this laptop, I will note that if you do have something like this, this is a ThinkPad dock. This is really handy for plugging in additional hard drives and stuff. And another thing I'll recommend is using an Ethernet cord to do this. This is a server, so it's much better to have a direct wired connection than using Wi-Fi. It's just how it is. What I'm going to go ahead and do is open up the computer, power it on, and depending on your hardware, you're going to need to hit a button to get into your boot menu or BIOS, whatever it is. And you're going to want to make sure and plug in the USB that we just created. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this in, and for me, I'm going to hit F12 to get into my boot menu. And then from here, I'm going to go ahead and select the first option, which is the USB hard drive. From here, it's going to give you a couple options. You're going to want to go with the first one, which is to install the Ubuntu server. Now on the initial boot with the USB, it might take a little bit to boot up the first time, And one thing I'm actually going to do is actually overlay a little screencast I did of the same installation process in VirtualBox, just so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. Okay, and once we are in the Ubuntu server installation, the first thing that we're going to do is select the language we want to use. You just use the arrow keys to move around, and when you hover over the language you want to use, just hit enter. And then from here, it's going to ask you if you want to update the installer during the actual installation process. We're going to go ahead and do this later, so let's just continue without updating. And then the next screen is going to be to select what keyboard layout you have. If you do need to change this, you could just go ahead and scroll up, hit enter, and you'll have a list of keyboard options here. For me, I'm just going to go English US, go back down and hit done. And now on this page is when we're going to select our internet adapter. Now, one of the reasons why we plugged in the internet is it's way easier to configure than trying to connect to a Wi-Fi connection through here. So it's as easy as going to the internet. Well, if it's already selected and you see a good IP address there, you could just go ahead and click done. But if you do need to change anything around, you could just go ahead and select on the adapter, and you will have some options here such as editing your IP4 information. I do recommend you keeping this as is, as automatic. We're going to go ahead and cancel out of this, and we know this is the adapter that we want to use because it's the only one available at the moment. I'm just going to go ahead and hit done, and then from here it's going to ask us if we want to enter a proxy address. This helps you access your server from the outside world. You could go ahead and do this later. For our use case, we are not going to need to do this, so you can leave that blank and hit on done. From here, we're going to select our mirror. This is where we're going to download all the updates and packages from. For me, the default mirror is completely fine. Download speeds are super fast. If you're somewhere else in the world, you may want to change this, but generally, no matter where you are, the default option should work for you. So we're going to go ahead and hit done. Here we have the option to use the entire disk. I do recommend you go ahead and do that. So check use entire disk, and I'm actually going to disable the set this disk up as a LVM group for now. You could go ahead and do that if you want to, but for what we're doing, this is just the easiest and most straightforward way. So we're going to go ahead and go to done. And then on this screen, it's going to give you a little rundown of the partitions and everything that it's actually going to do to your hard drive. After you give this a quick little skim through and you verify everything is correct, which if you do have just one root directory and a boot partition and the storage size takes up the entire drive, chances are you're good to go. So here we're going to go ahead and hit done. Now right here it's going to ask you if you want to confirm this action. It's asking you this because if you have anything on your disk, it's going to completely wipe everything. So just like with the USB, you're going to want to go ahead and back this up if you do have sensitive or important data on the drive. So I'm going to go ahead and go to continue. And at this point in the background, it's actually going through and wiping the drive and beginning the installation process. But right here, we're going to go ahead and create our user account. For this, I'm going to just go with Brandon as my name. I'm going to call this server media. Username, I'm just going to go with my name again. And then here, we're going to go with a password. I recommend you make it fairly strong. Done. One thing we're going to want to do here, make sure you select install OpenSSH server. This is going to be how we're going to actually get into our server a little bit later, transfer files and run commands externally. So go ahead and make sure that is selected. And then with that selected, you could actually go ahead and leave everything at default. So now we're going to go ahead and hit done. So on this screen, it's giving us the option to install specific Snap applications, which a lot of these are actually really good, but this isn't really the purpose of the video. It's just a bunch of extra utilities that you could go ahead and use. Like I said, I will be taking a look at a lot of these in the future, such as Nextcloud. There will be a video on that coming up, so make sure you are subscribed to see that. But for now, we're going to go ahead and hit done. All of these you could go ahead and install very easily later. So done. And now it is installing the core of our system as it's been doing in the background the whole time. So we're going to go ahead and wait for this to finish up and then reboot into our new Ubuntu server install. And then once Ubuntu server is completely done installing, you're going to have an option to reboot your system. We're going to go ahead and hit enter. And then from here, it's going to ask us to please remove the installation medium and then press enter. So I'm just going to pop this USB out of the drive and then go ahead and hit enter. And now your system or your new server is going to begin the process of booting for the very first time. Now the first thing I'm going to try to do once it's completely booted up is try to log in. So I'm going to type my username and then type in my password. And then you can see that we are now logged into the Ubuntu server. Now from here, all we're really going to want to do is quickly update our system and then pull the IP address. So the first thing we're going to do is go sudo apt update, type in your password again, and then it will begin updating your repositories and gathering the package lists that it needs. And according to my server, there are 84 packages that need updated. So we're just going to go sudo apt upgrade, and then it will begin upgrading after I hit Y and enter. And depending on how old the actual disk image is will dictate how long it will take to update your system. But just go ahead, sit back and relax and wait for this to complete. And now once we've assured that our system is completely up to date, what we're going to do is find our local IP address. So to do this, all you're going to do is type in the command IP space A, enter, and then it will display the information that you need. The easiest way to pick it out is to find your actual network adapter that we selected during the installation process. Usually if you only have one, it's the second one here. And you go to the section that says iNet, and then your IP address should be right next to that. Mine is 192.168.0.60. And yours probably won't be exactly that, but it might be fairly similar. So from this point, we've really done all we need to do when it comes to actually messing with the actual physical server. And now at this point, you could go ahead and actually leave that laptop or computer, whatever you're using, because we're going to go onto our primary machine and actually SSH into that server. And now, like I said in the introduction, this is going to be through our local network, so we can't really connect to it externally from a different network, from our cell phone, not on our Wi-Fi, whatever. Granted, there are ways to do that, but it requires additional layers of security, port forwarding, and things like that, and we're not going to really get into that today. So now that you do have the local IP address of that server, let's go ahead, go to our machine, SSH into it, and do some file transfers. So now we are back on the computer that I want to do most of the work on the server from. So what we're going to do is connect SSH to it and do everything else we need to do to set this up. Now I will have a link in the description to this page that you see right here. This is on techhut.tv. It has everything we've gone over so far, from downloading and setting up to the Ubuntu server, the update commands, getting into SSH, and now here's where we're at. You can see here I have all the commands that you're going to need. Easy, copy, paste, good to go. And since we're going to be doing this from the computer now, we are actually going to be able to copy and paste all that. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this over here. And then let's go ahead and open up an instance of the terminal. So right here, what we're going to do is actually SSH into the server. So then we can run commands from this terminal as if we're running it on the actual server. And to do this, you're going to want to make sure you have OpenSSH installed on your Linux machine. If you are running on Windows, you can do this a little bit differently. I'm pretty sure in the PowerShell, you could do the same SSH command and run it that way. But I will have a link in the description for more details if you are running on a Windows machine. If you're running on Linux, you just type SSH. And if you see something that looks like this, that means we have OpenSSH installed and we are good to go. Now to SSH into the server, all you're going to want to do is type SSH and then the IP address. And for this, your local IP address of the machine. So this is mine, 68.0.60. Hit enter. And then you're going to get a message that looks like this: the authenticity of the host, your IP address, cannot be established. Basically, you know you just made it, you know it's safe. So we're going to go and hit yes. And after you type yes, it's going to give you a little bit warning. We are now added to the list of known hosts. And then we have this Brandon at the IP address password. So you're actually going to be typing in the password of your new Ubuntu server. So I'm going to type that in. And now we are connected to the server as if we're on the terminal on that server that I have over there, which is very, very handy, because then we could do things like easily downloading and installing PLEX without having to type all this in. So what we're going to do is, right now I'm pretty sure we're in our home directory. We are. So I'm just going to click copy and then paste this in. just like that. This is getting the actual PLEX server file that we're going to be installing. Hit enter. It's going to go ahead and download. It's not going to take too long at all. Next, we're going to go ahead and get the dpkg command here to go ahead and install the deb package that we just downloaded. So paste that in, type in your password for the server. Oh, there's a little error. Oh, there we go. That one worked. So there was a little error. I'm going to go ahead and correct it on the actual website. So when you copy and paste it, there will be no issues, but you can see it's now unpacking and it has completely installed that Debian package. So now what we're going to do is enable and update the server. So the very first thing we're going to do is run an enable command to actually enable the PLEX media server service. So we're going to go ahead and paste that in there. Next is we're going to be starting the service. So this is actually going to be firing up the PLEX server. Paste that in there. And then we are going to go ahead and check the status of this. So this should say active, which it does. It says active and running. So PLEX is now completely running. Here, go ahead and hit Control-C to get out of that. And now what we're going to do is add the PLEX media server into the actual repositories. So then that way, when our Ubuntu server runs an update, or we just do the sudo apt update, it will also pull an updated version of PLEX, which by now, probably this version of PLEX is completely out of date. So this is an easy way to update it so you don't have to download and reinstall it. So we're just going to go ahead and paste these commands in here, add these to the repositories, just like that. And you can see that it has done this with no errors. So now if we do the same sudo apt update, we are going to get result that there is one package that can be upgraded, which is PLEX. So now we're going to do the same thing, sudo apt, and this time upgrade. Oh, not caps, upgrade, just like that. Yes, and then it is going to go ahead and download and install the latest version of PLEX. So while that finishes up, we could scroll down, and what we're going to do now is actually access our server files. Now we could go ahead and get a USB, plug it in, use the terminal to move files around, but it's much easier to do this with an actual GUI utility on your main system. And to do that, most file manager applications have this feature built in. If I open up this file manager, this is, I believe, Nemo, the file manager that comes stock with Cinnamon. It works in this, it works in Dolphin, it works in basically all of them. All you need to do is connect to the server via SFTP. And if we go over here, you can see that this is my example. It's going to be SFTP // the username for me, it's Brandon, at your local IP address for the server. I'm just going to copy that. And if I go ahead and paste this in right here, hit enter, it's going to ask me for my password. That's the password of the server. Go ahead and type that in. And now we are actually connected and managing the file system of the server on this computer as if the files are here, but they're not. And I can show you an example of this by going into our home directory, the username, and you can see this PLEX media server right here. This is what we downloaded earlier. If I go ahead and type ls, PLEX media server, both of these are on that server over there. Now, you don't really need this, so you could get rid of that if you want to. This step is completely optional. Delete. And then from here, we can actually move media into our actual server, so then we could begin streaming to devices all throughout our house or wherever you want. So an example of this is I'm going to go to my home directory and I have a movie right here. This is Finding Dory. I'm going to go ahead, Control-C, and you could get back to your server right here. Right there, you see it's the SFTP and the local IP. And if we just paste that in, it will begin transferring the file over our network, and depending on your router, it should be pretty quick. Now I will note PLEX likes you to organize your media a certain way, and personally I like it to be within my home folder. So what I'm going to do is create a new folder. I'm going to call it media, and within this media folder I'm going to make another new folder, call it movies, and I will make another one called TV shows. So now I'm going to go ahead and move this movie into my media folder, move it into movies, and that is essentially how you move files from your computer to your server very, very easily. Now, one thing I'm going to show you real quick before we check out the PLEX web portal is something specific for laptops, and that is making it so you can actually close the laptop lid and not have it suspend on you. By default, that is what's going to happen. And chances are you don't want your laptop to be open all the time. And when you close it, the screen will turn off but not suspend. And I'm going to show you how to do that real quick. On here, if you scroll down, we actually have everything you need to know right here. This is the SSH terminal for our server. And what we're going to do is, actually that's wrong. I do need to make a couple corrections in here, but we're going to go ahead and copy this, paste it in, change this to a D. So we're going to go sudo nano etc into the systemd folder. We're going to do a configuration edit for the login settings. If we go ahead and hit enter there, we have our systemd login configuration here. And what we're going to want to do is scroll on down to the handle suspend key, the handle lid switch, and the handle lid switch docked. And we're going to want to uncomment all these. All these little hashtag or number symbols are the comments. So we're just going to want to get rid of those. Go down to the lid switch, undo that. And then go to the lid switch dock, undo that. And we're going to want to change these suspends to ignore, just like that. And then after we go ahead and save this, so we're going to go Control O to write out the file. X, and then we're going to just reset or reload systemd. So go ahead and type in sudo, paste in this command, and this is just going to restart systemd, reload that configuration file, hit enter, and then we should be good to go. Next time you close your laptop lid, it should keep the server up and going. So now with all of that done, we can actually go ahead and access our PLEX server through the internet. And I'm going to do this with a different web browser, so it's a completely new process. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Chrome here, and the actual web address we're going to want to go to is just http:// your local IP for the server, and then the port is going to be 32400/web. Hit enter, and then it's going to connect to the PLEX server. It's going to give you a little thing on how it works. Just click got it. And now it's going to offer you PLEX Pass. This is optional. It's not needed whatsoever. Go ahead and close that out, and we're going to set up our server. You can name it whatever you want. I'm just going to capitalize, or I'm going to change it to media server, just like this. Right here, this is important. Allow me to access my media outside of my home. This is awesome that PLEX does this because it uses their own services. So it doesn't require you to add port forwarding or additional security stuff within your server. It's all just handled with PLEX. So then if you're at a friend's house or you want to share your data or your content with somebody, you could go ahead and do that. So click next. And now we're going to add a library. Select your library type. So I'm going to go ahead and select the movies library we just created. So I'm going to go films, and films, I'm going to change it to movies, and hit next, and then browse for the media folder. I like mine in my home directory, so we're going to go Brandon, media, and then you're going to want to select the directory the media is in for the category. So this is movies. And once you have the folder selected, just hit add a library. Then you could go next, and done. And now we should be connected to our new PLEX server. This is a bunch of PLEX crap. I wouldn't worry too much about this. If you go ahead and go under more, you see movies right here and media server. So this is my actual server. You're going to want to go ahead and sign in to claim it. And that's pretty simple. It's just like any other sign up or sign in procedure. You're going to want a PLEX account to go ahead and do this. So I'm going to go ahead and create one real fast and click create account. And we should be good to go. Go ahead and save that. And now if I go under more, go to my media server, claim it. Now that it's claimed, we could go back to PLEX, click on claim server, give it a little bit to do that, and then we are good. Just for the record, this is a throwaway email. Don't try to email it. I won't be able to contact you. So now, once it's actually claimed under this account, we could go over to PLEX, go to our media server, and now you can see we actually have access to our media here. It's still syncing in a little bit. It'll get all the proper metadata, so it'll have the movie description and all that. But that's really all there is to it. But other than that, I hope this video has helped you out. There will be a link in the description down below so you can copy and paste all the commands like I mentioned earlier, just to make your life a little bit easier. I do hope you enjoyed this. Please subscribe for more content like this. Like I said, I will be coming out with some more stuff regarding servers, Nextcloud, things like that. So subscribe, stay tuned for that content. Please like this video if you did. Give it a thumbs down if you absolutely hated it. Leave a comment with what your use case is when it comes to running a server in your home, and anything else you want me to cover, stuff like that. Check me out on Library. I have all my content uploaded there as well. Other social media links will be in the description. Once again, have a beautiful day and goodbye.